All right, so we have something we call the 5 principles of real estate wealth. My background included getting involved in real estate technology in the early 90s, in the mid 90s when the internet first collided with all businesses. And real estate was one that was really important because real estate was a very information intensive business. People in the industry would say it's a people business. Well, yeah, except that 100% of the customers that call you are asking about information on a house for sale. So it maybe eventually becomes a people function, but it's a data function in the beginning. And so when real estate technology came together, I was early in that space. I've been around it my whole life. I helped to build the first Century21.com and roll that out. I worked for the company that owns Century21. Now they're called Realogy. But I also launched a commercial real estate company. And I spent a lot of time in that, and I got a chance to watch professional commercial investors in and around the New York area, not so much in the city, but in the boroughs and in the suburbs. I began to observe the patterns. I learned that I'm good at pattern recognition, okay? I can see, and so we developed these 5 principles as kind of the bedrock of what these really, really successful investors do. And then I've seen for 25 years, it continues to reinforce that these are the 5 core principles. And the first one is timing is everything. Timing is everything. But I don't mean what you might think I mean. All right, let me explain. Good timing essentially is about avoiding mistakes, all right? And those are very, very rare in the real estate market. The truth is that good timing is really about having a lot of time to mature your investment. Good timing is holding for 25 years. Like if you bought, let me show you. Here's home prices according to the US Census since the 1940s. What you see is a nice, steady, gradual uptrend. And then you see 2010 was a little bit too high. All right, here's what happened during that period of time. So here's according to the National Association of Realtors. This is 1968 to 2017. Median home price in America. This chart shows you basically that the 1970s, bad economy. 1980, oh my God, people talk about the crash of 1980. There was no crash. Home prices flattened out. The crash was people that sell real estate. Their businesses crashed. The number of people that were buying houses when mortgage rates went to 17%, they froze up. So you hear a lot of people in real estate talk about how there was this big real estate crash in 1980. Well, not for people that own property. It's for people who sell property. Then there was the big crash of the early 90s. Well, where is that on this chart? Same thing. The market slowed down, the number of home sales slowed down, but values is essentially flattened out for a period of time. Then we have the 2000s, all right? And you can see the anomaly on this chart is not what happened after 2007, after this peak. That was the correction. What happened before the peak is what the anomaly was. Then it came down, then it leveled off again, then the market recovered, and we may be a little bit high right now, but the trend line, this is the key, all right? Bad timing was if you bought at the peak in 2006. But if you held for 10 years, you're fine. That's the point. If you look at this trend line, if you bought at the peak, you just have to wait. So bad timing was buying at the wrong time and then selling at the wrong time. If you bought at the peak and sold at the trough, you got hurt. If you listened to CNBC and talking about the housing meltdown, the housing free fall, you might have made a bad decision. If you hung on, listen to me, crash, boom, you would have waited for the boom. And if you had a 20-year threshold, you're only halfway through your life cycle on the investment. And we know where it's going from here, gradually upward. Maybe a little flattening to account for this steepness right here. Point is, this data, by the way, this chart, when I first started on America, I knew instinctively that long-term context, the long-term context was going to make all this make sense. This housing meltdown nonsense was just a correction of a bubble and it was going to come back. I knew it because I knew that population growth equals housing demand. It's not complicated. I don't care what the stock market does. I don't. I don't care who's president. I don't care who controls Congress. I don't care, right? If population is growing, then housing is in demand. People like living indoors. If they have kids, they want a dog. If they have a dog, they want a yard. They want a house. It's common sense, right? So I wanted to get this data and I couldn't find it. There was nothing published. I went to the National Association of Realtors and I asked them, how far back do you have median sale prices nationwide? They said, let me check. They got back to me 3 weeks later. They said, we go back to 1968. I said, I need that data. How much will it cost? They said, okay, well, we got to compile it for you first. 3 weeks later, they send it over to me. No charge, I'm a member. And I asked them, First of all, thank you, this is awesome. I made this chart, everything began to make sense. By the way, it was right at the peak. So I looked at this chart, I said, oh crap, look at this. We've got a little problem here because the trend line, good times, bad times, wartime, peacetime, Democrats, Republicans, cats and dogs. What is this ramp right here? This ramp's not gonna last, right? That was an easy thing to observe when you stood back far enough. But I asked the person at NAR, like, what was it? It took you a while. I don't mind waiting, but like, was it hard to get this? They said, no, it wasn't really that hard, but you were the first person to ever ask for it. So the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors had never asked for this data. It just goes to show you that, and what I began to understand is that I had an uncanny understanding of this asset class. If I'm the first person to actually ask for the data to create the visualization that makes it all make sense, well, I've got a good instinct on this, all right? And that's what I'm sharing with you. There's a lot of junk analysis out there in the market right now on the housing market, especially this year. And what I'm going to give you is the understanding of how the market actually performs. And what that's going to give you the ability to do is the same thing that I do, which is comment on it in media or social media and show people that you know more than some of the nimrods out there that are talking about it in the media. So let's talk about that. How to avoid bad timing is all about understanding the market cycle. Really, it's about holding on forever, but avoiding the market cycle's downturns or peaks. So here's the pendulum, right? You've heard about the market as a cycle. It goes back and forth. People say all the time, the market goes up and down. That's idiotic. The market doesn't go up and down. The market went down once in 80 years, okay? So when you hear somebody say the market goes up and down, that is an opportunity for you to stop them and say, actually, no, that's not true. It's only happened once. But here's the way this thing plays out, and it's a great year to be teaching this because this has been a shifting year. Maybe you've heard the media talking about the changes in the market and how we're going from a seller's market to a buyer's market. They don't know what they're talking about, and you're about to. So you'll see the big S, that's the seller, the small b is the buyer on this end of the spectrum. Over here, the buyer's big, the seller's small. That's meant to sort of depict this idea that when the market is at extremes, when the pendulum is swinging to one side, one party in the negotiation has all the power. So in a seller's market, like we've had for the last several years, the seller is the king and the queen, and the buyer is that bowing, scraping, serf coming in. We want to buy your house. We're going to overpay for it. Please let us, the letter. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but the letter. Dear Mr. Seller, when we saw your house, we immediately knew that this was a place where love reigns. We could see the smiling faces of your children in the pictures, and we said, maybe we could buy this home and raise our children here and have the same wonderful blah, blah, blah. People actually do that in sellers markets, right? Because the seller has all the juice. And then when it shifts, the pendulum swings and the market gets more even again. And then when it goes to a buyer's market, the buyer's in control. So let's just kind of look at that right now and talk about the behavioral patterns that create the pendulum, all right? So you start off in an even market, and then for reasons that we just went through in the last 10 years, the market's good, the economy's good, inventory gets tight, you get a seller's market. And here's what that looks like. Demand is high, okay? Buyers are eager to buy. The inventory is low because buyers are buying, right? I like visualizing an aisle like the milk and bread and water aisle when a storm is coming, in the supermarket. All right, when demand is high, the inventory burns off, right? You go in, you can't buy batteries, you can't buy bottled water, you can't buy milk and bread. You know that video, the milk and bread, right? So inventory is low because the demand is high and the buyers are buying. Bidding wars become kind of the quintessential behavioral pattern of buyers. They see a house, there aren't that many that come on the market, something comes on, 5 buyers pounce on it, they go straight up through asking price, and you get bidding wars. The transaction count during a real seller's market is high. Lots of houses are being sold. So things come out, they sell. They come out, they sell. All right? Transaction count is high. And prices are rising because the buyers are driving prices up. So the question is, when does it shift back? So this is great timing to have the conversation again because we just went through multiple years of a nice solid seller's market. And the question is, what was going to happen next? And it shifts back when the prices go up too high until the buyers begin to resist. So I'll take you back to the first quarter of this year. What was in all the media reports? Affordability is down. Affordability is low. Oh no, the market's going to plummet because affordability is low. Now, one of the things that you'll learn about real estate media or media when it comes to reporting on real estate is they will always look for whoever the aggrieved party is and center their narrative around that person. So if you own property in January, the prices are up, the market's good for you, right? Your clients that own property, they had no problem in January. The affordability being low was the problem with the buyer who was trying to get in. So that became the crisis of the quarter. Affordability is low. The market is necessarily now going to crash because affordability is low, because that all of a sudden became the most important stat when, again, the market was doing well. Like, I can't for the life of me remember the last time I heard a story about the stock market being up and then everybody being worried about the affordability being low for the stock market, right? If Facebook stock ever comes back again, goes to $200 a share, they're not going to say the affordability on Facebook stock is very low. That's bad for the company. No, it's good for the company. It's good for folks that own the stock, bad for people that didn't buy in time. But you see my point. So when prices go up too high, i.e. affordability is low, buyers begin to resist. So the market shifts. Now you get towards a more balanced market. What happens there? Demand begins to decline. The transaction count begins to decline. Okay? Inventory begins to increase. This is all very straightforward, right? It's all common sense. The fact that the media is mystified by it is just their fault, right? So affordability is low, prices are too high. What's going to happen? Well, if buyers can't afford to buy, then buyers aren't going to buy. Demand is going to decline, transaction count, the number of houses that sell is going to decline. Inventory then is naturally going to increase, right? When the storm comes through, you can get bottled water, right? When the demand declines, the buyers aren't buying because they can't afford, the inventory begins to accumulate until the sellers buckle, all right? And they get more realistic on their prices. Then sales prices flatten out. That's what started happening in the second quarter, into the third quarter. But again, the media spin on it was home sales are down, or better yet, home sales are plummeting. You'll see a lot of examples where they conflate home prices with home sales. Like home sales are down 19%. I saw a story today that was actually new home sales, so they even conflated it more. When you saw charts, downward charts about the housing market plummeting, it was the number of houses that were selling that was plummeting because demand was declining because the prices had gone too high. So the same people that were squawking about affordability being low, i.e. prices being too high, then saw the natural progression of that situation, which is the buyers don't buy, so home sales decline, and then the sellers have to reduce their prices. So then price appreciation began to decline. Now, it didn't depreciate, right? The stories in the third quarter was the rate of appreciation is down. And again, you saw a chart that showed a downward arrow, but the arrow was last year prices were up 7%. This year they're only up 4.5%. So it's a 30% decline in the rate of appreciation. Downward arrow on the chart. If I sound like I get mad about it, it's because I've been doing this for a long time, and it does make me mad because it scares a lot of people. There are people out there that are making decisions. You may be hearing from some of your customers. Let me ask you, do you have any customers that have contacted you and said, I want to sell my rental because the market's going into recession? Couple? Yeah. Right? Consumers watch CNBC and they hear this nonsense. Now what's happening is the market's going through a healthy shift. Price is too high, sales go down, inventory accumulates, sellers capitulate, prices reduce a little bit. You avoid a bubble. You avoid any kind of problem in the market because what's happening is the market's performing correctly. So here you got a seller's market. This is back in 2003. Prices increasing. Sales high. Bidding wars. The letter, please let us buy your home. Then you got a balanced market for about a week where the buyers finally said enough is enough, but because it had gone so high and out of whack, not like this year it never went out of whack. The market responded correctly. The reason why last time it went too high was because the mortgage companies made up the difference. Buyers were able to keep chasing the market uphill because the mortgage companies kept qualifying them for bigger mortgages. There was an artificially inflated buying power that the mortgage companies kind of fueled and the government fueled. So the balanced market didn't last long, and then we had a buyer's market, and it was protracted because the buyers said, no, we're not going to buy. And we had a reverse bidding war. A bidding war is when the buyers are bidding the prices up. A reverse bidding war is when the sellers are climbing over each other in much the same way, but in reverse. lowering their prices to get out because of the housing meltdown, right? And then you had a balanced market back in 2010 and 11, and then it began to go back to a seller's market again, all right? So now where we are is we're heading into, or we're in, a balanced market. The buyers are speaking with their actions. The sellers are responding with their actions. Prices are going to level off. And so what we expect is exactly that. Not for them to decline. There's no reason to think that they're going to decline because the demand is still strong. The economy is still good. Consumer confidence is still great. The job picture is still great. So all the reasons why the market is still supported by solid demand is there. They're just not stupid demand. Solid, but not stupid. They're not going to overpay. So the seller's got to come back to the table. And that's where we are today. Now, for this to go all the way to a buyer's market, we'd have to have demand going down, buyers not wanting to buy. The economy turns the other direction. All right, jobs begin to decline, unemployment increases. Now inventory begins to accumulate, not just because buyers are being stubborn, all right, and being sort of frugal on how much they're willing to pay, but they actually don't have confidence, they don't want to buy. Inventory accumulates, the transaction count nosedives again, and the sales prices begin dropping, right? Now, I don't see that on the horizon, and so I don't see a buyer's market. So when you see stories about a buyer's market, understand that they're really talking about a balanced market. They just don't know it. And if we go to a buyer's market, the shift is going to be back when the buyer demand increases, confidence comes back, but we don't need confidence to come back because it's already here, so we're never going to make it up to the buyer's market. And by the way, we can hang out right here in this balanced market. We can hang out here for a very long time. That's where the market usually is in a balanced market. All right, so here, just to give you an idea, these were we had seller's market, buyer's market, seller's market, buyer's market, but really they were pretty fairly well balanced because during this entire 35-year stretch, there wasn't any real decline in housing demand due to the prices being overinflated. It was just this one time in history. All right, so back to that. Seller's market, balanced market, buyer's market, balanced market, seller's market, balanced market. That's where we are. All right, so timing is everything. If this blue line kept going up at a crazy rate, if the lenders began to give away easy money again, no money down, no credit, no job, no problem, if that happened again, I'd be saying hold off. But it's not happening again. Prices are going to go up next year, just not as much as last year. Healthy. It won't be until we see some kind of a really gruesome recession. And even then, this is the best part of our business, guys. If we do see a gruesome recession in a few years, home ownership is going to decline as a result. So home prices might decline, but you know what happens when that happens? Rentership increases. Demand for rentals increases. So a lot of this has to do with what happens when you're a homeowner. But if you're a rental property owner, you're actually hedged against that occurrence because when the market's going well, you win on price appreciation. You win on people having good jobs, wanting to pay rent, whatever. When the market goes sour, you don't win on price appreciation for a time, but you win on yield because your prices go up on your rents. Okay, more people want to rent. So that's one of the things about this asset class that's so spectacular is the fact that it's got that recession-proof nature of it. Where things are good, it's good. When things are bad, it's still good.